Let's turn our attention to Exodus chapter 12 and 13. We finished the first 9 plagues and we are entering the 10th plague. It is at this 10th plague that Pharaoh will ultimately see the strong arm of God, and he will be found submissive, but yet not willingly. Just for recap, the first 9 plagues, remember, can be subdivided into 3 different groupings. Groups 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. Plagues 3, 6, and 9 occur without Moses giving Pharaoh a conversation or asking for the people to be set free. It is rather, it just occurs. And with each of the plagues, Pharaoh, not only his magicians and sorcerers lose ability to duplicate or to fabricate, but as the plagues develop, more and more Egyptians are believing and fearing the God of Israel. So we come to this 12th chapter, and Pharaoh and Moses are not on good terms. As a matter of fact, Pharaoh told Moses the next time he sees him, he says, "I'll kill you." And Moses said, "Well, you'll never see me again." So we find it's very tense between Moses and Pharaoh. And however, God has proven himself strong and faithful to all that he promised Moses in chapters 4 and 5. So here in the 12th chapter, I just want to fly over it at this study and notice 2 different aspects of this chapter. One aspect of Exodus 12 is the fact that it records the actual Exodus event. We find about 5 divisions in this chapter, and 3 of those describe here's how to show your faith in God. Then we see the actual event of the plague, and then we see the departure. So we see the actual Exodus beginning to occur. The other 2 divisions of the chapter aren't necessarily historical in the sense that they're recording history, but they are memorials to be observed after all of this occurs so that they don't forget history. Okay? So let me show you these divisions. The first 13 verses describe here's how you show faith. God is going to the final plague is the death of the firstborn. And that will occur. The plague will impact the homes who do not demonstrate faith. Well, how are you going to demonstrate faith? Is it simply verbal? No, there is God has determined a way that faith can be demonstrated. And verse 2, he says, "This month shall be the beginning of months for you, and it is to be the first month of the year. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th of this month, they each one are to take a lamb for themselves, according to the fathers' households, a lamb for each household." Verse 7, "Moreover, they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the flesh the same night, roasted with fire, and they shall eat it with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs." He begins to explain the other details of it. Verse 11, "Now you shall eat it in this manner, with your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover." Verse 13, "This blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt." So these are the instructions for the Passover lamb. Verses 14 through 22 provide a memorial, if you will, for when they get into their new land, their new life. This is how they are to remember this night. And so the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Verse 23 through verse 32 is the actual occurrence of the 10th plague. Verse 29 says, "It came about at midnight that the Lord struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt." So this is the event taking place. Verse 33 through verse 41, he discusses the deliverance. This is how they are exiting Egypt. Verse 33 says, "The Egyptians urged the people to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, 'We will all be dead.'" The Egyptian says, "We're all going to die. Get out of here." And so they go. Verse 41 says, "At the end of 430 years, to the very day, all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt." And then the last verses 42 to 51 are once again a memorial. This is, you are to do this and remember. This is to be a memorial. So, what I would like to spend a few moments on as we consider this chapter is we will look at the details of the actual Exodus in studies to come. But I want to ask the question, why, to one aspect of this chapter, and that's this. Why does God ask them and instruct them to create a memorial? Why does he give them instructions on how to celebrate this time next year? Why does he give them very detailed instructions on how to celebrate the Passover even when this night is over and they're in a land and they are free and they are not in bondage? Why? I think the answers to that question give us just some recalibration in our own heart as we come upon Thanksgiving, as we come upon Christmas, and then as we approach Easter. Why do we celebrate these every year? Is it just a cultural norm? Well, it's turned into that in many functions within people's practices. But I would submit that it's far more than that. I would challenge that it's not simply a cultural practice. There's more to it. So why does God want them to celebrate the Passover in the days to come? Why do we continue to celebrate Christmas and Easter and other Christian holidays? Why? Well, I want to just take a few moments and answer that question, and for us to fully understand the necessity of holy days. This is going to be considered a holy day. We get our word holiday, which comes from the phrase holy day. Why are holy days necessary? Let me offer some answers to that. One reason that I believe holy days are necessary is for the purpose of remembering. Remembering helps us to combat forgetfulness. It helps us to combat forgetfulness. You know, the older we get, the more we are likely to forget, and we forget quite easily if it's not in front of us. Let me spin that to a positive, that we remember not only to combat forgetfulness, but we remember to relive grace. Each time they celebrated this, they would relive grace. God gave them a way to avoid the plague. And by faith, if they practiced His instructions, if they did it His way, if they obeyed in faith, how God said they could escape his judgment, then they would indeed escape his judgment. So this would be a time of reliving grace. We celebrate Christmas to relive grace, God's gift of his Son to us. We celebrate Easter to relive grace, how the only begotten Son of God died in my place. He fulfilled that for which he came. So it was to remember. There's a lot of parts. Even when they were observing the meal, part of the Passover meal, they were to eat bitter herbs. Those were painful. Those bitter herbs were a reminder of how bitter Egypt was, the bitterness of slavery, the bitterness of the pain that they experienced, the bitterness of their hard labor, the bitterness of their no rights. And they ate, bitter herbs were part of their meal, so they would remember that. You see, simply tearing down painful memories does not remove the painful memory. It is the painful memory alongside the gospel that shows the goodness of God. Simply throwing all of my bad into a trash can and throwing it away does not remove the deep-seated pain and stain of those sins. Only the blood of Jesus can do that. Only the blood of Jesus. So we must remember. It's important to remember. It will help combat forgetfulness, but it will help us to relive grace. Holy days are necessary not simply for remembering, but also for proclamation, to proclaim. We see, even if you look in verse 12, he says, "For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord." This is a proclamation. The death of the firstborn is not just simply an occurrence, but it is a proclamation that God is proclaiming that he is Lord. And doing these ordinances, doing these memorials, were a way that they were not only inspiring their own mind to remember grace, but they would engage lostness. These stories would be part of the story of grace that they would share to others, that would lead others to faith. We proclaim. When we celebrate Christmas, we proclaim the incarnation of Christ. When we celebrate Easter, we proclaim the resurrection of Jesus Christ. We proclaim. When we observe the Lord's Supper, we proclaim the resurrection of the Lord. When we celebrate baptism, we proclaim. We not only remember, but it's a proclamation. It is necessary that we have holy days. They help us to relive grace, to remember. They help us to proclaim the message of grace and of hope. But they also bind. They bind people who celebrate them. When you take the Lord's Supper together with someone, there's a bond that is made. There is a camaraderie. There is a brotherliness. There is a sisterliness. There is a familyness. There is a fellowship. So celebrating these meals, celebrating these memorials, they are ways to bind the body together. And so how well that when God instituted these practices with his people, when they would get to their new land and when they would get to their new homes and begin their new life and have full freedom, when they did that, they would be bound together in ways that they weren't before. So this would rebind them when they were on the field and doing life. Holy days bind us. There's a bond that is made. Holy days motivate us. There is a strength, a courage that is built when we celebrate this. To preach a message specifically on the resurrection of Jesus Christ builds courage, builds strength. To know and to reflect upon and to ponder, as Mary did, that God Himself wrapped Himself in flesh and came to us. That builds up courage. To know that that same God, in that same flesh, faced with grueling intensity temptations just like I do, because if He blew it, there was no plan B. And what weight was on His shoulders? Not just simply the weight of the wrath of God, but the weight of responsibility to live as a tested Son of God. And He tested perfectly, without sin, without blemish. Not because He was the Son, but because He was the Son and He was tested. And that motivates me. That motivates me. That strengthens and encourages me. Holy days are necessary, because when we remember the detail of what is happening and the why of what is happening, it builds and strengthens courage. One last thing that these ordinances and memorials are designed to do: they are worship. They are worship. They are moments where we reflect on His grace and His mercy, but we worship and we glorify God through His goodness. We glorify what He has done for us. We glorify what He is going to do through us, but we glorify Him. They're worship. We are told even in the New Testament that as often as we celebrate the Lord's Supper, we proclaim His death till He comes. So we're coming upon some holy days, and I pray that these holy days will be a time for us to remember and relive grace, that these holy days will be a time for us to proclaim by engaging lostness, by engaging believers, proclaiming the good work of God, that we will see these days as times of worship to glorify God and His goodness, that they will bind us together and motivate us with courage. God delivered His people, and by faith they were delivered. And a lack of faith, they saw death enter their home. Holy days are necessary. And I pray that we observe them well, remembering and glorifying the God who has given them to us. Would you pray with me? God, take these words. Let them be fortification for my life. Hold our arms up with them. Encourage our weak knees. And may we serve You well. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless.